Mayor, thank you. Before I begin my comments, I want to acknowledge some of the Stevens family that are here. Elizabeth and some of Ted's grandkids are somewhere in the crowd here, and we're so pleased that you are part of today's celebration. And as I look out at this hangar today, I see so many friends. I see so many friends of Ted. And I will ask you, where were you on October 29th of 2008? Because if you were a friend of Ted, by God, you were here in this very hangar, October 28th, 2008, Ted Stevens walked through that door. It was dark, it was cold, but it was warm, and the energy was high in here. Because by gosh, Ted Stevens was coming back to the state of Alaska, and he was going to stand in front of the people who had stood by him for years, for decades. And he stood tall. He stood tall because he stood for Alaska. And we welcomed him with an enthusiasm and a love and a respect that only comes when you truly, truly have earned it. And Ted Stevens did that. That was October 29th of 2008. Now, as we fast forward to where we are today and learning some of the events that unfolded in that trial, Ted knew that justice was not being served. He told me, and I know he told his family, that this is not right. This is not right. And this was rattling the core of a man who believed in the principles that were set out in our Constitution, a man who believed that when it says Department of Justice on the door, that that's exactly what was going to be delivered. And he believed so firmly in that he disregarded the advice of friends and smart lawyers everywhere that said, don't move that trial up. Do it after your election. Don't do it. And Ted said, no. I know where I stand. I know the facts. I know that justice will be served. And I am confident enough in that I will move forward because the system is designed to help us all. Little did Ted know at that time that system that he so believed in, that he started out in as a young prosecuting attorney himself, that system was going to turn on him, and that it was going to be that system and the Department of Justice that would cause him to lose the seat that he had held for almost 40 years, that it was the Department of Justice that brought him down. And to use the words of Judge Sullivan, who said, an ill-gotten verdict not only caused Ted Stevens to lose his seat, but it tipped the balance of power in the United States Senate. Think about what happened as a consequence of prosecutorial misconduct that was allowed to proceed. Think about what would have happened had the judge said, prior to October 28th, when Ted came home, that something's wrong here. Something's wrong with the way this is being handled. Well, that message finally came forward, and it was delivered to Attorney General Holder, and on the 1st of April, 2009, April Fool's Day, oddly enough, we got the word that verdict was going to be thrown out. But by then, the damage had been done. A man's reputation, a passion that Ted had pursued for his whole life just pulled out from underneath. But still he believed. He still believed that when it all came out, it would be revealed. Well, Ted, it's all come out. And what has been revealed, I think, is rattling all of us to the core. Attorneys who chose not to provide the evidence that they know is required to be provided, exculpatory evidence, a big fancy name that basically says you have to share the evidence that is out there. You've got to do that. And they failed to do that. And as a consequence, we gather today as friends of Ted, as friends of justice, as people, as Americans who believe that when we have a system that says Department of Justice, it's going to be justice for all. And it's not going to be dependent on your title or your economic status. It's going to be justice for all. We need to repair what is wrong within the Department of Justice right now, and I've introduced legislation to do just that. We will do this. We will do this not in Ted's honor or to pursue that legacy, although I think Ted would want to make sure that this is corrected. This is what we're doing here. We're doing this for Ted, but we're doing this for all Americans. We're doing this to make sure that those fundamentals, those principles, that knowledge, that understanding is secure for all of us. When Ted stood here in this hangar, he said that my future is in God's hands. But he said, Alaska's future is in your hands. I keep this button that says Alaska's future is in your hands with Ted's face. I keep it in my closet right next to where I hang my bathrobe. You don't need to know some of this stuff, but the fact of the matter is every single day I see Ted's face and I'm reminded of his words that Alaska's future is in our hands. Let's do right by Alaska. Let's do right by Alaskans. Let's do right for our country. Thank you for standing with Ted Stevens. Thank you for standing for Alaska.
So well said, Senator. Our next speaker is someone who seldom has strong opinions. The hardest working man in Congress, Congressman Don Young. My dear friend and a friend to all of Alaska.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, friends of Ted's. That's a hard presentation to follow. I just told Lisa that's the way you give a speech. No writing, no one telling you what to say, but from the heart. And she did that. A lot of what she said is what I was going to say, so I will repeat some of them and some I will not. You know, we salute the flag, and the last words in that flag is justice for all. Justice for all. In this case, there was no justice. In this case, as the senator said, it was an extension of executive power over the legislative branch and finding a conviction illegally and taking away the rights of the Alaskan people by corruption of the judicial system, the key to our society of a great America. Now, it's hard for me to be up here and say some things that I probably should not say, but I may say. Because the same time that my good senator was going through the trauma he was going through, so was I. And if I could tell you some of the things that family went through and friends went through in the light of so-called justice, you would all go, ah. Because it is not a judicial system I'm proud of today. It is a system that's fraught with dishonesty and has the ability to take away your rights, your civil rights, by an action of individuals within the Justice Department that are very likely going to walk unless we can press this case. And that is wrong. The legal aspect of their bar should be extinguished, and they should be made to pay to every individual boy, that got good. I shut the mic off. I didn't touch it. For every individual Alaskans that have lost. And you did lose. We lost a friend. But more than that, we lost a power in the United States Senate that could stand up to an administration that's taken away now, and congressmen, not just administration, Denali Commission, railroad, ferries, health care, Denali Care, those things are being slowly peeled away because Ted's no longer with us because of the inaction and corrupt action of the Justice Department. We have to, as Alaskans, we leave this great, and by the way, thank you, Jim Jensen and Orrin and everybody else involved in this. Thank you for getting Alaskans energized. And this is not about yesterday. It's about what we can do to keep it from happening again. You know, this little booklet right here, ladies and gentlemen, is still the basis of our society. It's called the Constitution of the United States of America. And I have to go through the 4th, 5th, and 6th amendments. I won't read them all. But one of the things that bothers me the most, that all criminal prosecution, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed. What he was being accused of never occurred in Washington, D.C. It occurred right here. And what he was accused of was not a judicial matter to begin with. It was a Senate matter about how he collected money and did not collect the money, and it was never a judicial matter. But they made it so. They made it so. And by the way, you can thank a lot of the news media. I lived through this when you were automatically guilty. And I thought under the Constitution you're innocent until proven guilty. He was prosecuted and proven guilty prior to any action. Another thing that interests me is the Declaration of Independence. How many of you read the Declaration of Independence against King George? And this is sort of interesting, why we declared ourselves independent. The king has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices, the amount of payment for their salaries. But he also erected a multitude of new offices that sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out our substance. Does that remind you of something that I know and is in the White House right now? Officers out to take away our substance by regulation of law. Now, I'm not going to get off of what we're doing for Ted tonight, but keep that in mind. I wished all of you would read it's a very easy thing. Every kid in school should read this, and every adult should have a copy of this. We'll have them in our offices you ask for, and we'll get them to you. Because that's how we will run this country as an America, not as the United States of the federal government. And Ted would be believing me and standing beside me as he did for many years. We had a team you could not ever beat. We have a good team now. We're going to get better. But what happened to my senator, your friend and my friend, should never happen to anybody in this room, and it can under the present system. Let's change that system. Let's become the America that I know and love. Let us have justice for all. Justice for all. Justice for all. Thank you.
Wow. That was about an 8.2 on the Richter, I think, there, Congressman. But I think we all agree with everything the senator and yourself just said. No two people could have said it better. Governor Parnell could not be with us tonight, so I have a letter that he has sent for the occasion that I'd like to read to you. It says, "Dear Senator Murkowski, I strongly support your efforts to right the wrong forced upon Senator Stevens, his family, and our state. We stand with you to improve and promote justice in the federal criminal justice system through S2197, the Fairness and Disclosure of Evidence Act of 2012. The prosecutor in our criminal justice system must stand squarely on the constitutional foundation of fairness and due process. The prosecutor has the advantage of first seeing the evidence gathered by law enforcement, and it is the prosecutor who initially decides which evidence is brought to the grand jury and ultimately provided to the defense to prepare for trial. The stakes are high in criminal cases. The defendant's personal liberty and reputation, among other interests, are at issue and depend upon the prosecutor's timely disclosure of exculpatory evidence. Beyond individual implications, stakes can be even broader where public servants' careers are destroyed by prosecutors endeavoring to win at any cost, regardless of constitutional principles and the rule of law. We now know that is what has happened to Alaska's beloved Senator Ted Stevens, and it should never have happened and must never happen again. Senator Stevens, his family, and Alaskans were all entitled to rely on the professional judgment of seasoned prosecutors in the Justice Department. To recognize their duty required them to turn over all exculpatory evidence. That did not happen, and the history of our state was changed by the prosecutor's failure. While I am very disturbed, it would take legislation to require federal prosecutors to perform a fundamental duty of fairness. I'm also concerned about the lack of discipline applied to the prosecutors for failing to uphold their duty. Please urge the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Senator Leahy, to schedule S2197, hold hearings, and pass the bill through the committee. Sincerely, Sean Parnell, Governor. Yep.